When we discuss the now legendary N64 Aki wrestling games, where does WrestleMania 2000 actually stand? It's kinda like the black sheep of the group nowadays, and some might even say it's a pretty pointless game when you look at the other options available. WCW vs NWO World Tour or Virtual Pro Wrestling N64 are noteworthy for being the first Aki wrestling games to make their way to Nintendo's 64-bit console, so they'll always serve as a curiosity, two games that let players see how it all began. You've then got WCW Revenge, which is arguably the greatest WCW video game ever released, and it serves as the game for fans of World Championship Wrestling. You then move on to Virtual Pro Wrestling 2, which many people believe is the absolute best Aki wrestling game of the entire bunch, thanks to its deeper gameplay mechanics and legendary roster. And WWF fans would call No Mercy on N64 the best WWF or WWE game that's ever been released. So why bother playing WrestleMania 2000 when you've got all these other games to look at? Why play the Aki wrestling game that many consider a weaker version of Virtual Pro Wrestling 2? A game devoid of those deeper gameplay mechanics that made Virtual Pro Wrestling 2 so well revered, even though Mania 2000 was developed at the exact same time. Not gonna lie, out of all the Aki games, Mania 2000 would also be my last choice, but you gotta remember when this game came out, and you also gotta remember what came before it. Before Mania 2000, WWF fans who owned an N64 had two options, WWF Warzone and WWF Attitude. These games were serviceable and I had fun playing them on the PlayStation, but the WCW games on N64 were miles better. I dare say a lot of WWF fans were quite envious of the WCW games back then, because I know for sure I was. So when the World Wrestling Federation switched developers and the same guys who made World Tour and Revenge were set to make a new WWF game, it was almost too good to be true. In late 1999, when this game got released, it was highly relevant. It was very important. It's been surpassed for sure, and when looking at the Aki N64 collection, it does feel like you've got way better options. But until No Mercy came out, WrestleMania 2000 served as the top dog for N64 owners who also happened to be Grapple fans. Well, top dog for those who didn't import Japanese games. So let's check out WrestleMania 2000 in today's video, and let's give Aki's first WWF game a little appreciation. WCW Revenge was a massive success for Aki and publisher THQ. The WWF took notice and they decided they wanted a piece of the action. THQ envisioned Aki working to bring out WCW and WWF games at the same time for the Nintendo 64, but WCW decided they did not want to share game developers with their biggest rival. WCW cancelled their existing deal with THQ and Aki. They decided to look for a new studio and developer for future releases, and so the WWF were set to get a brand new N64 game, while WCW NWO Revenge would serve as the final World Championship Wrestling game using the famous Aki engine. THQ were under legal obligation to release one more WCW game for the N64 though, so they got Inland Productions to port their questionable WCW Nitro game from the PlayStation 1 onto the N64. A pretty terrible way for WCW to end their run on Nintendo's 5th generation console. Still, I have nothing but great memories of WCW World Tour and Revenge. I still own copies of both games, and I still own my copy of WrestleMania 2000. But there was absolutely no way I was going to use that cartridge for this video review. Let me show you. This right here is what a PAL copy of WrestleMania 2000 plays like. This was recorded directly from my console, and yes, it does feel like the characters are moving around underwater. The explanation is simple. Electric frequency in most European regions was usually 50 Hz. Our TVs usually had a 50 Hz refresh rate, and therefore our frame rates were typically around 25 or 50. Our NTSC buddies in North America had a frequency of 60 Hz, meaning you guys in America typically got games at 30 or 60 frames per second. Have a look at some NTSC footage I recorded using an EverDrive and you'll instantly notice the difference. WrestleMania 2000 and most other games would run at a rate locked to how fast the game was refreshed. As time went on, more developers started including a 50 Hz mode in their games, but back then the easiest thing to do was to slow the NTSC NTSC game down by a sixth so it could run on a 50Hz screen, effectively saving the developers having to recode the entire game or at least add optimizations. As kids, we knew none of this shit. The PAL game looks really slow nowadays, but back then we thought this was normal. But trying to play the PAL version now really isn't fun, so I opted to emulate the game instead, and all footage you'll see here is recorded using Project 64. Look at WrestleMania 2000 when upscaled on a PC. The difference is absolutely incredible. I don't think I described how to actually play these games when covering World Tour and Revenge years ago, but let me quickly demonstrate the beautiful simplicity of the Aki wrestling engine. Tap B for a quick strike. You can tap B while pressing back or towards on the D-pad for more strikes. Hold B for a strong strike. You can hold in a direction or tap A and B together to perform more strong strikes. Tap A for a quick lockup, allowing you to perform quick grapple moves by using A again with or without a direction, or B with or without a direction. You can also Irish whip from a lockup by pressing the C down button. C down also lets you run, and you can pull off running strikes while dashing at your opponent. However, WrestleMania does not include running grapples. A little odd seeing as Virtual Pro Wrestling 2 allowed these kind of moves. The L and R shoulder buttons act as your defensive buttons, R for blocking and countering strikes, L for dodging or reversing grapples. You can hold R when getting to your feet to stay low and wait for the right time to grapple or strike your opponent, though this is a defensive move that can only be pulled off when you've been put on the canvas. You've got a spirit meter at the bottom of the screen, known as the attitude meter in WrestleMania 2000, and when this begins flashing red, you can flick the analog stick to go into the special state. When in the special state, you can then perform your finishing move. One of the great things about the Aki games are the amount of specials and special variations that are available, so take the time to experiment with your favourite wrestler to find out all their special moves. These basics will be enough to get you started, but you really need to play these games for yourself to understand why they're so well regarded. WrestleMania 2000 and indeed all Aki N64 games feel like no other wrestling game you've ever played before. There's a real addictive quality to playing matches, and that addictive quality is what many wrestling games have lacked since Aki stopped developing grapplers. The way you lock up, the defensive moves, the spirit meter implementation, just how a match progresses. These games are still so much fun to play today, and as I talked about in the Challenge 64 video, I'm so happy that there's still a thriving community out there tearing these games apart to create new mods and updated versions of the all-time classics. I'm sure there's many people out there who look at these games without ever playing them, wondering what all the fuss is about. I mean, admittedly, they don't look brilliant in terms of character models and whatnot, but I do hope new grapple fans take the time to give WrestleMania 2000 and other Aki wrestling games a chance. The games may not look very pretty today, but I guarantee you're going to have a lot of fun playing matches, especially if you can convince a buddy to play some two-player games. Before looking at the modes on offer, here's the game's entire unlocked roster. It's kind of funny because we're only a month or two away from seeing this roster in my Reliving the War video series, so it's been fun playing as these guys again while seeing what they've been up to on Raw's War around the same time period. The selection here is pretty good, though if I'm honest, I prefer the roster in WCW Revenge. There's a way better selection of cruiserweights in Revenge, and it kinda feels like a lot of the guys in WrestleMania play the same. On top of this, you've also got what I consider a much better roster available in WWF No Mercy. So yeah, while WrestleMania 2000 selection is fine, it has been surpassed by games that came before it and after it. In terms of match types, we can now have triple threat matches, a first blood modifier, and also a cage match. All these things are welcome additions, seeing as Revenge was a bit lacking in match variety, although to be fair, WrestleMania 2000 could have done with even more match variety. Speaking of first blood matches, apparently some versions of this game remove bleeding altogether while some early copies still have it. Strangely, while playing the ROM I downloaded, I couldn't bust my opponent open even though the animation played out to show that he had been bleeding. But then, later on, the blood was visible during another match. Not sure why this happened, but yeah, not all versions let you get colour, but the first blood modifier is retained on all releases. King of the Ring mode has been added here where you can set up your very own tournament. The Royal Rumble's here and it plays out just like the Revenge Battle Royal, only this time you have a maximum of 30 superstars instead of 40. You've also got the Road to WrestleMania mode, but I'll talk about that a bit more in just a moment. In terms of overall presentation, WrestleMania 2000 got a huge upgrade over Revenge when it came to entrances. I know these look pretty weak nowadays, but having full entrance animations along with actual theme music was a pretty big deal back then. The theme music does sound heavily compressed, but it's a huge upgrade from Revenge's 2 or 3 MIDI themes that played for every wrestler in the game. So it's good to have a little bit more authenticity before matches take place. Entrances are cut short in WWF No Mercy, by the way, so many people think WrestleMania 2000's the king in terms of making an entrance. Something else that was greatly expanded upon in WrestleMania 2000 were the creation modes. You can now create a championship belt, although to be fair there's minimal design choices. The WWF Light Heavyweight belt was cut from the game, though it is accessible with a Game Shark code. The colour's a little bright to say the least, but it's there if you want it. You can create and save a pay-per-view, allowing you to set out a card full of matches to play over and over again. And then there's the Create a Wrestler mode, the first time Aki incorporated such a mode in an N64 wrestling game. Revenge did let you edit wrestlers, but you could never create someone from scratch. So now you have the opportunity to make an original character or create a sneaky WCW superstar from parts carried over from the previous game. You might even find a few All Japan or New Japan guys in here. If you like editing superstars already featured in the game, then this is also available. Again, you could do this in Revenge, but now you've got way more options along with the ability to clone a superstar. At the time, this was pretty amazing, and yes, everything about these creation modes were quickly surpassed by No Mercy, but you gotta put yourself back to late 1999 and forget that No Mercy or even Virtual Pro Wrestling 2 even existed. Speaking of Virtual Pro Wrestling 2, players had the ability in that game to alter CPU logic and how the CPU controlled each character. This mode was included in WrestleMania 2000, however it was cut out before release. If you enter this ridiculous Game Shark code, you can actually bring the mode back to WrestleMania 2000, so while it's cool that this cut content can be resurrected, it does make you wonder why it got removed in the first place. Animations for mixed martial artists were also cut from WrestleMania 2000, takedown and submission moves that are a part of VPW2 got removed, and the combo strike grapples that were available in Revenge and Virtual Pro Wrestling 2 also got cut from WrestleMania 2000, although the data for these unique attacks are still sitting there on the cartridge completely unused. It's these kind of things that make people prefer Virtual Pro Wrestling 2 over WrestleMania 2000, especially in modern times. The language barrier is no longer an issue with VPW2 thanks to English patches getting released, and fans can even opt for the excellent Freedom Edition mod that also works on real hardware. So you can maybe see now why WrestleMania 2000 becomes a bit redundant nowadays when these other options are available. Of course, you can't really compare the roster and overall presentation of WrestleMania 2000 to anything else. This is a pure 1999 Attitude Era video game that represents a time in history when the World Wrestling Federation were absolutely dominant against their competition, but folks discovering the Aki games for the first time will likely brush WrestleMania 2000 off because there are better options out there. This, however, does not apply to those who have fond memories of first owning Mania 2000 all those years ago, and there's very valid reasons why people would prefer this game over the likes of VPW2 and No Mercy. But I'll talk about all that towards the end of the video. We need to take a quick look at the Road to WrestleMania mode first of all. Let's start with a positive. WrestleMania 2000's main single player experience is a lot better than what was on offer in WCW Revenge. Revenge featured a basic arcade style single player mode where you beat a bunch of guys, win a championship belt and unlock a wrestler. WrestleMania 2000 goes way beyond that by giving players a calendar, a ton of belts to go after, a King of the Ring tournament to win, a Royal Rumble to win, all while every victory and every loss is tracked as you work a WWF TV schedule each and every week. This is fine, it's way better than what came before it, and it's good the players had a single player experience that they could really get lost in. A few problems though. First of all, the cutscenes. Cutscenes are few and far between, and the cutscenes we do get make very little sense. I can't be too hard here because Revenge had absolutely nothing in terms of promos or things that remotely progress the story, so while the cutscenes are bad, at least it's something. Secondly, the difficulty spikes. WrestleMania 2000's Road to WrestleMania mode will kick your ass after playing for a few months, and match difficulty gets ramped up big time for title matches and pay-per-view matches. It feels unfair at times, seeing as you can do well on Raw and Sunday Night Heat, and then when the pay-per-view comes, you're getting completely smoked by some random mid-carder. Third and finally, the random match generator seems a bit odd. I started a new season with Ken Shamrock and I must have wrestled about 5 tag team matches in the space of 2 months against Draws and Albert. While I certainly do enjoy forming the Motherfuck Dojo in WrestleMania 2000 in order to take out anyone who dares to step up to the plate, doing the same match over and over again can become quite dull and a bit boring. Thankfully, you can play more than one season mode simultaneously, so you do have the ability to switch it up every now and then, but there's definitely a lack of variety here, and it gets a little annoying playing the same matches over and over again. The Road to WrestleMania modes where you'll unlock new characters such as Shawn Michaels, Jerry Lawler, Dude Love and Cactus Jack, so if you want the full roster, you will need to play through this mode. Personally speaking, I prefer to set up exhibition matches instead, but again, it's an improvement over Revenge, so you can't be too harsh. No Mercy story mode is leagues better than Road to WrestleMania mode though, so you might play this nowadays and wish you were playing something else instead. So why would someone want to play WrestleMania 2000 instead of any other wrestling game released on the Nintendo 64? Nostalgia. It's nostalgia. It plays a huge factor in anything remotely retro, and this is greatly enforced if you had a personal connection with the game all those years ago, like nearly 25 years ago, my god. For many people, it will not matter that the game's been surpassed, it won't matter that other games offer more. If WrestleMania 2000 was a game they loved when growing up, then it'll always have a special place with them, and that kind of value is unmeasurable and incomparable. I can kinda look at the Aki wrestling games the same way I look at the original Street Fighter 2 games, so let me explain. Street Fighter 2 is the blueprint for the magnificence that would soon follow. Street Fighter 2 Hyperfighting fixed a lot of issues people had with the first game, increasing the game speed and adding elements that should have been in the original. I know Champion Edition came out before this by the way, but just bear with me here. Super Street Fighter 2 added even more new characters and new cool moves, but they messed up by bringing the speed back down, kinda taking away what was already available. But then Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo added the speed back while also perfecting the formula to give the ultimate experience. The thing is, which one of these games do you think I enjoyed the most? I got Super Street Fighter 2 for Christmas one year and I absolutely adored that game. I played it so much that even today I still find myself going back to it even though I know Super Turbo's a superior game. The same rings true for fans of WrestleMania 2000. They don't care if things were removed that were included in Virtual Pro Wrestling 2. It's all about having a little nostalgia for the game and that's what makes it better. Another big factor too, I think, is the multiplayer aspect. If you played a ton of WrestleMania 2000 two-player games with your friends but kinda moved on when No Mercy came out, then you're gonna have better memories of playing WrestleMania 2000 because nothing beats the multiplayer experience of these classic Aki games. When WCW Revenge came out, my buddy and I played it to absolute death, trying to beat our top match scores by having extremely long tag team matches and having all sorts of banter while playing against each other one-on-one. Those kind of experiences can't be recreated no matter how good the next game is, and so for many folks, just popping in a copy of WrestleMania 2000 and seeing the menu screen will be more than enough to remind them of the good times. In short, there's no wrong answer when it comes to your favourite wrestling game, and the same rings true for absolutely everything in regards to pro wrestling. I've said this before in my pay-per-view videos, but just because the general consensus says something's mediocre or bad, it doesn't mean it's mediocre or bad for you personally. There's loads of things I enjoy that I know deep down's absolutely shit, but because it brings back memories or there's some other personal connection I have to it that others don't, then it's going to mean more to me in comparison to everyone else. This is why I feel WrestleMania 2000 shouldn't be dismissed when looking at the entire N64 wrestling library. I know folks who enjoyed this game immensely, and even though I prefer something else, it doesn't mean the game doesn't hold any value. It just so happens that others find more value in the game, and that's pretty awesome. Not gonna lie, putting this video together kinda makes me want to go back and redo the WCW World Tour and WCW Revenge videos. I've no idea why I decided to lump both games together, and looking back at that video, I know I could do better. As a matter of fact, I want to delete it because I feel it's pretty bad, but I'll leave it up for now, and maybe I'll cover those WCW games again in the future. I'll leave it for a while though, because I'd be treading over some of the same ground I covered in this video you're watching right now. Thanks very much for checking this one out though. Like the video if you enjoyed it, tell me some of your WrestleMania 2000 memories in the comment section, and I'll see you all for the next upload. Take care everyone.